Have you ever regretted promising something that would end up costing you weeks of your life? No, that's not the right question. Do you like trophies? I recently finished playing through Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1 and started playing through Budokai 2 because I've got this series where I rank every Dragon Ball game after completing them, and I remember this series exists like twice a year. For some reason, I decided to be a completionist for the Budokai series and get all the trophies. The problem is, these are PlayStation 2 games. They don't have any trophies. But worry not, because the Budokai HD collection came out for the PlayStation 3, which means we can get a platinum. We can, except the Budokai HD collection does not have Budokai 2. Now, I expect many of you already knew about this, but I was shocked. Appalled even. What do you mean? An HD collection does not have a part of the trilogy? And so, I started looking into this, and let's just say that I'm in too deep. I am now on full conspiracy mode because the more I find, the less things make sense. But bottom line is, I made a retro achievements account, and that's how I'm getting all the trophies/achievements for the Budokai games. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2 is one of the most original Dragon Ball games ever made. Instead of a story mode, they did a board game. A single-player board game with tons of optional events where things could unfold in a variety of ways. Take this Super Buu encounter, for instance. The Supreme Kai has the Potara. If Goku and the Supreme Kai are able to meet, he can give the earrings to Goku, at which point Vegeta shows up, and now Goku needs to meet up with Vegeta so they can fuse together. Meanwhile, Gohan and Super Buu are fighting against each other, and if you lose a single fight against him, Buu is going to absorb you and become Buuhan. So in response, you become Vegito and beat up Super Buu. That's how things happen in the show. It's not that impressive, but no one is forcing you to do any of this. You could simply beat up Super Buu using Gohan, ignoring the whole Supreme Kai and Vegito side of things. You could also choose to get beat up by Super Buu, but then decide to double team him as Goku and Vegeta rather than fuse him. Or you could just solo Buu with Hercule. Multiply this by a total of 9 boards the game has. As a Dragon Ball fan, I think it's pretty damn cool, but not everyone thought so back then. Budokai 2 came out a year after the first game, and that one had a proper story mode, fully voice acted with cutscenes and everything. For a lot of fans, Budokai 2 felt like a downgrade. Reducing the story to talking heads turns the once engaging plot into a drab, formulaic mess. That's definitely a fair way to look at it. The more I looked into this, the more it felt like Budokai 2 is one of the most polarizing Dragon Ball games ever. The most mixed reviews, the most love it or hate it. And maybe that's why they decided to skip it for the HD collection. I've looked for the answer to this question for a while. It should be easy to find. I mean, it feels like the #1 question you would ask Bandai if you were around when this thing was released. And yet, the only time I find this question asked is in one interview from Shaq News. Was the second game not popular enough to be included? No, as in no, it's not a popularity thing. But when you look at the 3 games, 1 and 3 are actually more straight up fighting games. 2 is a fighting game, but it also introduced some other elements of gameplay that kind of broke off fighting aspects a little bit. Oh boy. This quote is from Senior Global Brand Manager Jason Enos, who is no longer with Bandai Namco. And the answer is some high-grade media training BS. While it's true that Budokai 2 introduced some elements that broke off the fighting aspects, like including RNG minigames during supers or quick-time events during fusions, those elements carried over to Budokai 3. So if 2 is not a fighting game, then 3 is not a fighting game either. So when we finally decided which games to go with, obviously fans love different ones, but we decided we would bookend the compilation because the first game set up the Budokai series, defined what it was, and the third game was a final resolution of the Budokai series. Also not true. The final resolution of the Budokai series is Infinite World, no matter how you look at it, but I also understand why they didn't go with that one. Jason's answer wasn't all lies though. The answer actually started with a truth. The first word actually, the word no, as in it wasn't about its popularity. According to video game charts, Budokai 1 sold 3.46 million units, Budokai 2 sold 2.9, and Budokai 3 sold 2.5. Is this a flattering angle? A couple of other websites showed similar numbers, so I thought I'd show you these. So as far as sales go, Budokai 3 was the least popular one. Talk about something that flips your entire worldview upside down. So then I turned my attention to reviews. Maybe it's less about sales and more about how fondly these games are remembered. And sure enough, Budokai 3 is by far the one with the best Metacritic score, a respectable 77. But it still doesn't explain why Budokai 2 was excluded. It has a 66 6 Metacritic score, which is very similar to Budokai 1, and in fact, the user score is significantly better. But here's what the harshest critics had to say about Budokai 2. From Play Magazine, takes the shallow one-on-one fighting action of its predecessor and repackages it with essentially no noteworthy enhancements to the fighting engine or visuals. Disappointing. So I guess if I put Budokai 1 and Budokai 2 side by side, you won't be able to tell the difference. From the official US PlayStation Magazine, matches basically boil down to ridiculous standoffs that are won by whoever can bust out Kamehamehas the fastest. Not exactly the best way to channel your competitive spirit. I don't even know where to begin with this one. From My Gamer, who gave it a 62, the Master Roshi load screen has more replay value than Bobby D's spaceship. This is actually a go to take. Bobby D's spaceship sucks. Now back then, Metacritic wasn't as popular. Back then it was all about IGN and GameSpot. Those were the big outlets doing reviews, so I decided to read their reviews in full. GameSpot gave it a 6.7. The review is by Ryan Davis. Rest in peace. Ryan said that it lacks the compelling story mode. The board game format doesn't bring a lot of strategy to the table. The omission of a story mode is Budokai 2's biggest misstep, ending the review by calling it an underwhelming sequel. Ryan was not a fan of the Dragon World game mode, and this is something we could debate back and forth whether it is something better or worse. I think you're gonna hear different opinions. It is very debatable because the two game modes are very different. But this is definitely one of the big things that people just hate about Budokai 2. Ryan wasn't all negative though. He did say that Budokai 2 really outdoes its predecessor in the graphics department, which appears to be where DIMP spent a majority of its development time. Oh, did you hear that, Play Magazine? They're the ones that gave it a 42 because the game doesn't improve visually. IGN gave it a 7.4 by Jeremy Dunham. Dragon World can actually be pretty fun. What the hell? The two biggest outlets are saying Dragon World sucks and Dragon World can be pretty fun. Who should I believe? The biggest problem Jeremy seems to have with Budokai is that you can't jump or crouch. He really wanted to jump or crouch. He mentions that like twice. For us to enjoy deeper, more traditional fighting games, Budokai 2 still leaves plenty to be desired. Hey, a 7.4 is not a bad score, and that seems to be mainly his reasoning for not going higher than that, which is fair. Unfortunately, the Game Informer review is no longer available. They gave it the highest score of the biggest outlets, a 7.5, saying even though it's not in the Premier League of Fighters, I can honestly say for the first time that non-fans will find this an inviting game with its own brand of depth. But from all the reviews I was able to read, none of them discovered charge guard canceling. I guess I should explain what charge guard canceling is. I'm gonna do that elsewhere. Many attack strings in Budokai have specific attacks that can be charged up. If you charge them up all the way, they become unblockable. That's why they're still mix-up, even though you can't jump or crouch, Jeremy. Most of the depth of Budokai comes from canceling these moves. Every single move that can be charged can also be cancelled by blocking. This is how you execute advanced combos, or how you mix the hell out of your opponent. Without the system, I agree, Budokai is basic as hell, but this opens up the game so much. And now I'm not closer to finding out the answer than I was when I started. Budokai 2 is not less popular. It's not a worse game than Budokai 1 by any metric. I didn't find a single reason to not include it in the HD collection that made sense to me until I started diving into user forums. I don't know if you're gonna like the conclusion to this video. There's this random PlayStation Trophies forum that has the best reasons as to why they wouldn't include Budokai 2 in the HD collection. Well, seeing as how 1 and 3 have a combined trophy list, they are saving it to use as DLC content. Let's go! The HD collection came out in 2012, so it's taking them a while, but I'm sure any day now, they're gonna announce Budokai 2 DLC. Or maybe the real reason is besides the fusions and minor battle quirks, it doesn't offer you anything that 3 doesn't. And that's true. Budokai 2 was a better game than Budokai 1 in every way, minus the story, but even that's debatable. But if you have Budokai 3 available, then every single one of those improvements, you can just play in Budokai 3, except for the board game story mode. But at that point, I don't know why we're making a collection at all. Why not just do Budokai 3 HD? Or bring back Infinite World, give the people a chance to experience that game instead of just sending it out to die. Who the hell releases a PlayStation 2 game right after Burst Limit on PS3? Like, who does that? Anyway, I regret becoming a completionist in the Budokai series. Budokai 1 was grindy, but Budokai 2 requires me to beat that stupid board game over 40 times. Because only at the end of the game mode can you summon Shenron and make a single wish. And if you want to get all the capsules for all the achievements, you gotta summon him over 40 times, which means you get the idea. I brought this on myself. Anyway, the original Budokai was pretty funny. Funnier than you remember, probably, and you can see why in this video right here. Thanks for watching. Bye.